In this presentation, we're going to be focusing on hunger. And so we're going to start with one of the earliest studies conducted on hunger and on the effect that hunger actually has on the mind. Ansel Keys ran what is known as the Minnesota Starvation Experiment towards the tail end of World War II. Keys and his research team were funded by the United States military, and there was a question that was going to become very relevant for the military as we approach the end of World War II. And the question was, what does extreme starvation look like, and what are the best ways to help a body recover from extreme starvation? And this was a really relevant question because the United States troops that were stationed overseas were about to encounter a lot of populations with the conclusion of the war that had been under semi-starvation for quite a while. And so the United States was trying to figure out, what can we expect to see in these people, and what are the best ways to rehabilitate them? So Keys ran a study comprised of volunteers. The volunteers were from a pool of men known as conscientious objectors, people who wanted to serve their country during a time of war, but for reasons of conscience couldn't go into combat. And these men were put on a semi-starvation diet for a period of time. And while Keys noted a bunch of things, the study took part in multiple phases. There was an observation phase. There was a phase where the caloric intake was drastically reduced. There was a rehabilitation phase. The big finding from this study that is cited most often is the effect that hunger had on the mental well-being of the participants. What Keys noted was that individuals during the starvation phase very, very quickly lost focus on anything that was not food related. That these men who had very diverse home lives, who had hobbies and interests and wives and families, became utterly and completely focused on food and didn't want to spend time thinking about anything else. And so this study really shows sort of what Maslow's hierarchy of needs was suggesting, which is that when we deprive our body of food, it seems to hijack our mind and make us focus on food in an attempt to get us to eat again. So moving from Keys's intro study into hunger and the effects that hunger has on us, one of the big questions is, okay, well, how does the body create this feeling of hunger? What's going on maybe biologically that's causing our body to create that aroused tension state of that hunger drive? And so one of the first hypotheses was that we're hungry because our stomach starts to send these like stomach contraction signals to tell us to eat. It's true that if you've ever been sitting in a class and you know that lunchtime is approaching, your stomach might start to growl. We've all probably had those uncomfortable moments where our stomach starts to make like really loud noises in the middle of a quiet class because it's lunchtime. And so that was the type of thing that psychologists and physiologists, Washburn and Cannon, noticed. They noticed that it seemed as if the stomach would growl and contract when someone hadn't eaten in a while. And they wondered, okay, well, do those stomach contractions correlate with feelings of hunger? And so Washburn and Cannon conducted a study on that very question. And so what happened is Washburn actually swallowed a balloon into like the inside of his stomach. That balloon was still connected externally to a recording device, as you can see in this image. And so the balloon, once he swallowed it, was inflated so that the outer surface of the balloon was in contact with the inner lining of his stomach. And every time his stomach contracted, the balloon would have to contract. And that contraction was then recorded externally by a device. At the same time, Washburn also had a way to record every time he felt hungry by pushing a little button. And so you have two variables and two like data points being collected. Every time Washburn's stomach contracts and every time he feels hungry. And what Washburn and Cannon did is they then overlaid these two pieces of data to see, do they actually match up? And what they found is that they did, that pretty much every time Washburn's feeling hungry, his stomach is also contracting. However, the answer is not as simple as, okay, well, we feel hungry because our stomach starts to cramp and it starts to contract. Because there have been lots of other studies that have shown we feel hunger even in the absence of a stomach or a functioning stomach. Here we have some research done in the late 30s by Sang, who removed the stomachs of rats, connected the esophagus straight to the small intestines to see what effect that might have on the rat's hunger drive. The idea being, well, if stomach contraction creates a feeling of hunger, well, without a stomach, they shouldn't be able to feel hungry and they should not seek out food. That's not what happened. These rats still sought out food and still engaged in eating behavior, even in the absence of their stomach. Sort of anecdotally or using case study research, we can see humans who have lost some or all of their stomach as the result of surgery or tumor removal or cancers. They still report feeling hungry. So stomach contraction can't be the total explanation for what's going on in terms of the hunger drive.